we essentially have questions about the original Broadway production because we only have an audio bootleg, meaning we can hear everything that's going on, but we can't see anything.
It was nuts. There were so many changes constantly. Rewrite after rewrite after rewrite. And me and my fellow more veteran actors were just going, because I always said, and many of my friends have said this over the years, that if the directors and the writers and the composers want to know what's wrong or what's struggling, why the show is struggling, bug the chorus dressing room. Because the chorus girls know what's wrong and how to fix it. But they don't have any power. I've been involved in the formulation of brand new shows many times, helped create them, helped mount them, put them up, and they flopped. And it's a long, tedious, very difficult process. It's very hard to keep your perspective on it because you get so focused on it. And so it's very hard to step back and look at it objectively. And it depends on the collaborative process. I mean, who you're working with and their way of working, and whether that gels and syncs well, or if it's contentious. Although contention can sometimes be very productive, but there's nothing harder than trying to write an original musical. I love Mr. Gibson. No, he was brilliant, but he'd never written a musical. Mm-hmm. He really didn't. I don't think he really understood how musicals work. But I never had a discussion with him about it because, that wasn't my place. Even though I was a leading character, I wasn't one of the creative process. The only thing that I had a lot of input in was the choreography. And Pat Birch was always changing the choreography, hoping that if I make the production numbers better, that'll save the show. The choreography is never the problem. But we rehearsed the bat dance every day from 10 to 12 for 2 hours every day in those weeks out of town in Washington, D.C. And every day it changed. In the flying bed scene, I was the bat, and they put me on a flying rig, an acrobatic flying rig, flying by foy. So I flew through the bed, and I was doing acrobatic spins and attacked them with an oar, right? It was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. And every time I had to step into the rig for like 20 minutes to set it up and everything before I actually did it, and my legs would go numb. And I kept thinking, what is the point? They could have done it with a lighting effect. They could have done it with a sound effect. But I'm up there throwing myself around like some really bad circus performer. And it was dangerous. It was dangerous because I was supposed to land on platforms and fight with Raggedy Andy with the oar and, I don't know, and sink the boat. That was the point. I was supposed to sink the boat. And it was just too much. It was fun to do it. I could say I actually flew in a show like Peter Pan. But it wasn't that necessary. It really didn't have to be that. And I don't know what that cost them. The other thing is then when we were in the clouds, this is the example of extravagance. In order to create the effect of the boat flying in the clouds, they had to put fog on the stage. And the way to create fog is with dry ice. So to create enough dry ice to envelop the stage and have it be substantial, they had to put something like 10 or 15 huge barrels of dry ice in the basement under the stage.
Wow.
To pump all of it. But the thing is, most people don't understand that dry ice, it actually sucks the oxygen out of the air. So to pass, and there was no crossover space in the back of the stage, so you had to go downstairs through the basement and up the other side to cross over. But the actors We had to wear oxygen masks.
Oh
I swear to
no.
God.
Oh no.
Because if you went there, if you stayed down there too long, you'd pass out from the
Oh no.
That's crazy.
That's so funny.
And even scarier, there was a lot of trap doors in the
Yeah.
stage that
Yeah.
they used for exits and entrances. And when the fog came up and you were doing your movement, your choreography, you couldn't see where the trap doors were. And more than one actor went down the trap door. I always say the thing about Raggedy Ann is I got to play an animal, a real character person. And I got to fly and I got to die. Now the way they decided to kill me
Oh yeah.
was to have I think it was Miss Dr. Doom strangle me,
Yeah.
throw me down the chimney. So they had to create this flume. So and there was 3 stagehands below it on the trap door, and so the chimney was an opening, and he strangled me, and I went diving down the flume.
Wow.
Arms of 3 stagehands.
That's so cool.
And I got burned up, right?
Yeah.
It's really gruesome.
Yeah.
But
Oh
I
yeah.
never got more hurt in my life than diving down that flume every night. I got bruised. I had black and blue marks all over my body.
Wow.
It was
Oh
dangerous.
gosh.
He just kind of gently lowers her into the orchestra pit in the original
Yeah.
version.
No, he
But no,
shoved
just
me headfirst into the fireplace, into the chimney. The big chimney.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
That was part of the reason I wasn't that upset when the show closed. Or show. But the thing about it is we were like the Three Stooges. I mean, the way it was
Yeah.
written is we were written as a comic relief. There was nothing really scary. You know, I was supposed to be like the whatever Lola wants character, you know, the little seductive bat.
Mhm.
The wolf was madly in love with me, right? He was enamored. He was always pawing me, and I was enamored with the Dr. Doom character. So it was so messed up. It was so real. I mean, they were trying to walk a very fine line and tone, and they never quite found it. And the problem with I used to call us the Evil Triumvirate, right? Is that we weren't really that scary, and nor were we that funny. And what Mr. Gibson kept doing, he kept cutting our dialogue, paring it down. Every day we'd go in after the 2-hour rehearsal of the bat dance, where again the choreography was changed, and the lyrics were changed. we would get the rewrites, and we'd sit there and work through the new pages in the script, and invariably anything that defined our character and our relationship ended up getting cut. I didn't do it, but I wanted to get up and say, excuse my French, well, what the f am I doing here? You know, I have no purpose. I have no objective. I don't know. As an actor, I'm going, how do I play this? I mean, it's like a cartoon now.
yeah.
And so, you know, you want, even the bad guys, you want to feel sympathy for them. You want to understand how they came to be bad and what.
Yeah.
It was very frustrating because, you know, having been myself an assistant choreographer and director and whatever, and a performer in other nascent shows where I had a little bit of power and a little bit of say, or I could make a suggestion or say, you know, what about, you know, I didn't feel that in the room. I didn't feel that it was welcome. There wasn't a lot of actory kind of, let's explore our motivations as actors and our backstories. It was very, I want to say, cartoonish. You know, we weren't being asked to dig very deep as the triumvirate. You know, so you become like a placeholder or a representation symbol, a symbol of something, as opposed to a real character. And that was frustrating. But the people were lovely. I mean, it wasn't like it was a bad experience. It just baffled me that this wonderful composer, this brilliant playwright, this very successful and knowledgeable director, Patty Birch, all of that, it just somehow didn't come together. And because they spent so bloody much money, I think, we came to New York and we weren't ready. And then they kept changing it, kept rewriting it in the 2 weeks of previews. So by the time we opened, it was just a mishmash. And the reviews all reflected. We opened on a Thursday and we closed on Sunday. We had 4 performances. The original script, I got the impression that they were trying to create sort of a Lola character like Gwyn Verdon and Damietti's. Which I thought, I can do that. That looks like fun. Even though she's a secondary character, she could beef up and give more heart to the piece, especially with all the death and dying and disease on the one side, and the child abuse and the alcoholic father. And all that. It was a very educational experience, but ultimately, I think, in a nutshell, it was always a small, intimate little sort of shoebox show that got turned into Phantom of the Opera. It just got so overblown and overproduced, and special effects and huge sets that very often didn't work. And I mean, I can detail it for you, but it was like, I remember Mr. Gibson did say something in rehearsal or at a meeting that he liked the whole show better when it was just in a rehearsal room. Basically, because the audience and you were encouraged to use your imagination, right? But the Broadway production was, I mean, the giant, like I don't know if you've ever seen Into the Woods.
Yes.
The Broadway production of it, right?
Yes.
And this huge foot come in, boom, come down. Whereas a lighting effect and a very convincing sound effect would have had a more powerful feeling than watching that stupid huge foot come down and squash. But that's the trap when you have too much money, Always, there's that wonderful expression, I'm sure you've heard it, that less is more. Less is more interesting. When you have fewer resources, very often you come up with a better solution to whatever the problem may be. In costuming, in stage setting, in lighting, all that, less is more. The thing that I took away from it as a director later on, when I became head of the musical theater department at this performing arts high school here in Louisville, and it was my job to direct and choreograph these big, huge musicals. And we had a big space, a beautiful space, Broadway-sized theater, but not much money. And small crew. What can you do with something simple that works for the setting of the play? And to not go over the top. You don't have to have a real car come on stage. Because again, if you don't have the money, it's almost a blessing. And then you can put your monies in other places, like in advertising or orchestrations. If you want, you need to reorchestrate something or whatever. Spend your money where it's going to pay off for you. That's about the best advice I can give. What else can I offer up?
You answered a lot of our questions just right off the bat.
Yeah.
Okay.
No pun intended.
No pun intended.
Well, the absolute worst thing for me in terms of as a performer, because I was a bat, bats hang upside down, right? So in the opening of the second act, I was suspended, hanging from my knees, upside down on the mast.
Did you hang upside down on it?
I did. I hung upside down, but I had to hang there. I had to be there through the entr'acte, which was 2.5 minutes long.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I never hung upside down very long. All the blood was just here.
I can
And
imagine.
again,
Goodness.
hanging from your knees like from a trapeze kind of. It was wood. It wasn't a trapeze that didn't swing or anything. But the illusion was that I was a bat hanging upside down, and then I'd wake up and sing my nasty little song. try to steal the mat. I dreaded that moment more than any others, even more than the going down the fire pit, because I was scared of losing my balance. You know, when you come
Yeah.
up from hanging upside down, you're a little lightheaded
Yeah.
and disoriented. And then I had to do a 2.5, 3 minute, big, huge can-can
Yeah.
production number.
God.
Goodness.
The choreography we did for that was more of a can-can than anything else, because the original choreography that I saw little snippets of that my dear friend Pam Souza did, it was much more sultry, much more lyrical. I had a flight suit on. Made me look like an aviator. I have some pictures of it, but I don't remember. I had big, like, epaulets that looked like
Yeah.
big shoulder pads. And I had this wonderful, like, goth wig, and
Oh,
it was.
Yes.
And I had beautiful high lace-up boots. But no, I was on the aviator style thing rather than trying to look like a real bat. I don't remember the wigs.
They might
That's
have
the least of my problems.
they might have only had them for the dance for that bit and then like not had
Yeah.
them again for
Yeah.
the rest.
Am I
I
allowed to?
literally don't remember them. But
There's-
maybe because I had to do these acrobatic flips through this
Right.
double wire. I don't remember having that. Maybe I did, but I blacked it out. Oh, it was sort of like a diaphanous cape
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
That's on top of the stupid, oh God, the house, the top of the rooftop that we stood on.
Yeah.
And again, I was upside down, and when the curtain opened, I had this before I hung upside down. I had to do a back walkover off of the rooftop. I said, I'm too old for this. Well, the biggest problem too was the microphone. The microphone, because of the corset I was wearing, they couldn't put it the body mic, so they put it in one of my shoulder pads. So, and the wire. Well, during opening night.
Oh.
The mic pack fell out of my shoulder pad and was swinging and beating the hell out of me around my legs while I was doing this can-can. My father was in the audience, and he had never been to an opening night of mine in New York. So it was really important to me. This costume disaster, just messed me up. I was so upset.
Oh.
And I didn't stop dancing, but the whole audience probably could see this mic pack swinging around and banging me. Those are the things I remember.
Yeah.
And the finale, when we were all singing the reprise of Ragdoll or whatever, we would throw Raggedy Ann dolls to the audience, like candy. Oh yeah, like gifts.
Really? That's
For
so
the children, so at least if they walked out of there upset, or they could walk out with a doll. It's so weird because when you haven't thought about something for so long, and then you try to drum it back up, and only the highlights, especially the scary ones,
Yeah.
pop up in your mind. No, we were pretty much everybody. I don't know about Marcella, and I don't know about Ivy. Because it was her baby. I mean, she was so brilliant in that thing.
Mm-hmm.
She was the doll. I mean, man, and she worked her butt off. She was a delight and such a trooper.
I spend a lot of time looking at Les Mis stuff because Raggedy Ann was so like not documented very much. So I look at Les Mis stuff just to find stuff about Leo.
Oh yeah, he was. I mean, he got that right after Raggedy Ann,
Yeah.
as I recall. He was thrilled. I'm going to play Thénardier. Okay, great. And yeah, of course I went to see him, and he was wonderful.
Yeah.
He was a wonderful character actor, but he was a wonderful human being too. He was such a kind, sweet man. Yeah, he was unrecognizable. He was like made up like a Frankenstein monster. Well,
Yeah.
all of us were. None of us were really recognizable as ourselves. Certainly. Yeah, it was like Halloween costume time. And no, it was not pleasant. I probably had the easiest makeup job because I did my own makeup, and the wig and the costume did most of the work. But I didn't have to have all the prosthetics and the extra stuff. the things with the nails, and then I didn't have that. I did have long gloves that had fake gold glitter nails on them. They weren't that hard to handle. They weren't. I'd also painted gold toenails on the boots to match the fingernails. Well, everybody in the cast was delightful. I mean, we were all giving it our all, and we were just throwing up our arms. Could we somehow get this to work? I don't think the audience could have known what the heck was going on
No.
and who we were. I don't see how they could.
We mentioned we're like, along with like trying to revive it, we're also making little revisions in the script as well, and that's one of the big parts, is bringing them back.
Because Bat and Wolf need some real justice.
Yeah, they deserve so much more.
Yeah, they were victims too. I mean,
Right.
and it was more painful loss for the little girl. I mean, this little girl had lost so much. Ultimately, the feedback I got from people thought that it was just the little girl's fevered dream, that the whole show was like The Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
Right.
Like, she didn't really go to the land of Oz. She was knocked out and had this incredible, vivid dream. But I don't know if the audience took it that way. Because when you think about it, the Wizard of Oz has all of those very dark characters. But Dorothy, is loved and cared for. The tornado and the only evil person in her is the Wicked Witch. I mean, is her teacher who keeps stealing her dog and complaining about her dog and wants the dog to be put down. So that's scary, but it's not the same thing as having your dog eat your pet canary. Your mother abandon you, and your father being a drop down alcoholic drunk. You know, you have your work cut out for you, ladies.
Yes.
At the time, I didn't even know any of the history of the piece. It wasn't until after we were in rehearsal and after we were out of town that people started sharing stories about it and all that. But I got the feeling that the Bound for Broadway production was a huge departure from the original.
Pretty much any character that was recast, it was a large difference from the character that played them before.
Casting is very important. I mean, it can really make or break a character and solidify, and it can help the playwright or the book writer to go, oh, wow, you know, there's a quality in this actor who's they're bringing their own ideas and energy to a part that they'd never thought of or imagined.
Right.
And like, oh, I like that, you know, and that has an effect. And that's, you know, the rehearsal process is so important, the workshop process of it, so that you can discover these things. It was an adventure, and short-lived. I mean, I was very disappointed that it didn't work, because I love children's, you know, fantasy and shows like Into the Woods and Wicked. I think possibly, and I'm not sure, but from the reviews, you know, people thought Raggedy Ann was going to be like the Wizard of Oz, and it wasn't. Like I don't know if you know Into the Woods well. I mean, the second act is the most interesting part. The first act is the fairy tales to everybody, and the second act is, okay, this is what happens after or during Happily Ever After.
Yeah.
Right.
And that made it a very mature, very grown-up production, and not necessarily for children.
It's not.
So, you know, you got to know who's your audience. You know, who are you producing this for? If it's for young audiences, then you have to shape it and design it for that. You know, without being sappy or overly sentimental, it can still be very heartfelt and very moving. It has to be digestible by younger minds, younger souls, if you will.
Yeah.
So it's great to read a lot of older stories that I don't know what you guys grew up on, but the Brothers Grimm, the original Brothers Grimm's fairy tales, and even some, believe it or not, really seriously look at Chinese and Japanese fairy tales.
Yes.
Because they're exquisite stories, and they have lots of the iconic characters and lots of the dilemmas, but it's steeped in a whole other mythology. It can be very enriching and make you open your imagination to approaching something and surprise your audience in like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, but it's really cool. All right, well, anything else?
What would you do to improve the show?
Me personally?
Yes.
Again, you've got to first decide who your audience is. Who are you aiming the show at? If it's for young audiences, I would say somehow or another, pare down how much suffering this child has experienced. Because she has so much trauma in her life. What would be the most emotive or most motivating thing for her to get? If her illness isn't real, if it's psychological, if she's depressed and doesn't really have like pneumonia or something, is it because what trauma is causing her emotional illness? Make that more specific. And it doesn't matter which one you choose because there's so many. Alcoholism is a big issue in a lot of children's lives. You know, if the father is a bad father,
Yes.
because he's an addict, that's something. The abandonment by the mother might have been motivated by because of she couldn't deal with the husband. You know, what I'm saying is just make it make sense. You know, the danger is in any, as I've written a few plays myself and a couple of musicals, so you have to be wary of falling in love with your own material. You have to be willing to say, you know what, this doesn't work. This doesn't help. Either the character doesn't work, or the song doesn't work, or you've got to just step back from it and reshuffle it. I'm not sure if the Triumvirate, as entertaining as they may be, serve any real valuable function. Maybe one character that is some sort of representative of death, or that somehow embodies the trauma or the fear that the child had, the memory of the trauma. And you could do that anyway, you know, it's like Little Red Riding Hood, you know, she meets grandma and it's a wolf. Maybe it's just the bat. I mean, like, who is Dr. Death? I mean, or Dr. Doom? Who is he? You know, how does that come out of her imagination as a reaction to her trauma? Is it a story that her father has told her? Or is it something, you know how kids are traumatized, wait till your father gets home, then you'll be punished, you know, whatever the fear of God that goes into kids for not being perfect kids. But I mean, dealing with depression, I know the effect of young childhood trauma can have on people throughout their whole lives. And in depression, a lot of it is in terms of healing from it, coming out of it, besides medication and therapy and all that. The person has to make the decision to change the way or learn to think differently, cognitively about the trauma. You have to have some sort of revelation. Name of one, stop blaming yourself for the trauma because you didn't cause it, but and to forgive yourself for having a very negative reaction or a bad reaction and for getting sick because of the trauma. Now with childhood depression, that's a whole nother very sensitive thing. I mean, I'm not an expert in that. So you might want to do some research on that and talk to child therapists, get their take on what has worked therapeutically. In the story that we were dealing with here, she finds solace in her imaginary world with her dolls. That's the comfort and her friendship and the thing that gives her purpose, if you will, a reason to keep living and to give and receive love, even if it's imaginary.
Yes.
Now, how do you convey that in a story? In this, you know, we use it, and she goes into her imaginary world, and her dolls come to life and help her seek the medicine she needs. And it's in this sense, she has a broken heart, right? That's what's really wrong with her. So I guess the big question you have to ask is, how do you heal a broken heart? How do you heal a child's broken heart? For real, not, I mean, imaginary therapy and all that is good. But, you need something concrete so that the child or even the young adult can become the master of their own trauma, that it no longer rules their life. It's not going to go away. It's still going to live inside of them. They'll still think about it, feel it, but it's not going to stop them in their tracks from maturing and going beyond it. So if Marcella is blaming herself for her mother leaving, you might want to think about, well, what is the event? What is the trauma? What happened? How does it resolve? I mean, do you want it to have a happy ending? Does she, are we ever going to see her as a grown up? We're going to see her as a mother with a healthy relationship with her child? Where is it going? What are we trying to say? Some people think, and I probably don't disagree with them, that theater's primary function is to educate, to teach the people about what it is to be a human being and to experience that adventure, if you will, through other people's eyes, through other people's experience. So it broadens your own understanding of your own humanity. But you also learn something throughout and a good play teaches you something and allows you to actually reflect upon it and recognize it. Maybe some of that's in your own life. And you can learn from how to handle your own life experience through watching it in a story. That's the magic of stories. We tell each other stories so we can survive being alive, basically. I mean, I try to imagine what the little ones in Ukraine right now, sitting in those bomb shelters, what stories are those parents telling those children to help them understand what's happening? So when you take a story like this that is fundamentally pretty simple, and in terms of the magnitude of trauma, it's not that big. You know what I'm saying? But it's enough. It's still trauma. If her mother did commit suicide, that may be something that you want to look at in the story. I mean.
Yeah.
So that we understand, and why did she commit suicide, and why did Marcella get depressed, or maybe carry some guilt about that? Maybe she feels she did something that made her mother so unhappy. It's based on it's already based on a written story, right? Isn't there a fairy tale? The original source material.
Oh, it's very, very loosely based on the real Raggedy Ann origin story.
Like the real life,
Okay.
what happened to Johnny Gruelle's daughter.
Okay, so that's where you start. Always go back to the source material. My understanding is that Mr. Gibson was interested in exploring depression and trauma a lot because his wife was a psychiatrist. So he was interested in this. I don't know the source material. Maybe because of his interest in the deep, dark corners of the human psyche, because of his understanding or conversations with his wife or whatever. I don't know what kind of therapist she was, but go look at the source material and take it from there. Because I don't know the legal stuff. Maybe, and I don't know, you might consider thinking about it, getting rid of the Gibson stuff and paring it down and take it from the source material more. I don't know. That's just a thought that's occurred to me when you asked me that question. I mean, I don't know. It's a big question. It's a big job. But you have this wealth of information of what didn't work.
Yes. That's what we're using to revise Gibson's script and make it make sense. Strengthen all of the characters and expand on all of the characters, strengthen the themes and the through lines. We've done a lot of work on his script. It's still the same story. It's just we've made it more cohesive.
Don't fall in love with it.
No.
If you cut characters, cut them.
Yep.
You know, do you
We've done
need
that.
do you need an ensemble? I mean, do you need them? You know, think about smaller productions get produced more often if they have fewer cast people in them, fewer costume changes, etc. Write the play first, then add the
Yes.
song. Where do the
Yes.
songs belong, and who should sing them, and why do they sing them?
Mhm.
Yes.
And then you'll have a really a sweet show, I think. That's all I can think of. I wish
Absolutely.
you all the luck in the world because
Thank you so much.
I know how hard it is.
Thank you so much.
It was really nice to
Yeah.
meet you. Yeah, thank you
much.
for your time.
No, it's my pleasure. I hope, I wish you all well with it. Keep me up to date. All right, ladies. Good luck.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.